Okay, I'm gonna take you through the bones now. So starting chapter 7. Uh, all right. So going. Okay. The skeleton. The skeleton is basically bones, cartilage, joints, and ligaments. Okay. Joints are also called articulations, and we'll cover that in chapter 9. Okay. The skeleton is composed of 206 named bones grouped together into divisions. Today, we're covering the axial skeleton, which is 80 bones, which consists of the skull, right, the vertebral column, so the head and the vertebrae in the back, okay, and the thoracic cage, okay. The appendicular skeleton consists of 126 bones that make up the upper limbs, okay. All right, so today we're covering the stuff that's actually in blue here, okay, and then the stuff that's in, I don't know, peach or whatever that color is, we'll cover tomorrow. Okay. So the skull, okay, is the body's most complex bony structure. It's made out of two parts, right? The cranium and the face, the facial bones. Okay. The purpose of the cranium, okay, is to enclose and protect the brain. Obviously, your most important thing. When we talk about brain, you'll see exactly why that needs so much protection, because the brain is not like your muscles, okay? The brain is incredibly soft and incredibly squishy, okay? All right. The bones of the cranium enclose and protect the brain. They provide some attachments for some muscles of the head and neck, in particular in the back. Okay. Okay. The facial bones form the framework of the face. Okay. They have cavities for sight, right? Taste, smell. Okay. And different openings for other things. Okay. All right. So cranium. Okay, face. I know we talk about cranium being the whole head, but that's not actually true. The cranium is actually the thing that surrounds the brain, the solid structure that surrounds the brain. Okay. All right. The cranium itself is divided into the vault. Okay. The top of the head is the vault, and then the base. Okay. We'll skip over the fossa. Okay. The cavities, we'll go over them later. Okay. Okay. So don't worry about this. There's very few foramina and things that you have to know. Okay. But I will get to those. Okay. So the cranium is formed from 8 large bones. Okay. The temporal bones, the parietal bones, okay, and then the unpaired frontal, occipital, and sphenoid and ethmoid you can't see from the here. Okay, so let's talk about them one at a time. Okay, first the parietal bones. The top of your head is where the parietal bones actually are. Okay, so okay, I'll see a great picture of parietal bones. Okay, so that is the parietal bone right there. Okay, right here. Okay, the parietal bones. Okay, sorry about this. Okay, the parietal bones actually form the superior and the lateral parts of the skull. Okay, and there are 4 big sutures that are identified with the parietal bones, and these 4 are definitely going to be on the test. Okay, the first one is this suture right here called the coronal suture. Okay, the coronal suture runs in the coronal plane, okay, and it separates the frontal from the parietals, okay? So the red bone right here is the parietal bone, the yellow bone right here is the frontal bone, okay? This line in between them is the coronal suture. It's just a wiggly line of bone where the 2 bones actually meet, okay? They look like sutures, okay? They look like really, really bad looking sutures, but they look like sutures, okay? So that separates the frontal from the parietal. The sagittal suture separates the parietal bones from each other, okay? I'll show you a picture later to go over that with you, okay? The third suture is this one, squamous suture. This is the flatter part of the skull, okay? This is the squamous region of the skull. So that suture that runs across is the squamous suture. It separates the parietal from the temporal, okay? On the back, okay, you can see another suture here. It's called a lambdoid suture. Lambda, the Greek letter lambda, is a upside down triangle, upside down V. Okay, so it looks like a lambda, so lambdoid suture. Okay, make sure you go through all four of those. Okay, okay. Also, okay, word of advice. Everything so there's a file on Canvas called the boneless or boneless one. Okay, know those things. All the correct answers will be one of those things. Okay. You don't, if it's not on there, you don't need to know it, and it will never be a right answer. So don't put it there. Like, don't answer any questions using terms that are not on there because they're not going to be right. Okay. So everything you need to know about bones is on that bone list. Okay. We'll skip the sutural bones. Okay. The frontal bones. Okay. The frontal bones form the forehead, okay, and the roof of the orbits. So the eye socket, okay, is called your orbit, okay. The frontal bone forms the majority of the superior margin of it, and that's called the supraorbital margin. Okay. Okay. The other thing I had on there is the gabella, which is the smooth part of frontal bone between the two arches, right there. Okay. 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 The occipital bone. The occipital bone. Okay. Stop here for a second. All right. One of you guys had a quick question about the test, which I answered, and now I'm back. Okay. Okay. The occipital bone, okay, forms the posterior portion of the cranium and the cranial base. Okay, so occipital bone, there's the occipital bone. This bone is also the occipital bone. The occipital bone has a couple of unique features, okay? One is it has a really huge hole in it, okay? That's where the spinal cord comes through. That hole is called the foramen magnum. Foramen hole, magnum big. It is literally called the big hole. Okay. And then it has these two curved surfaces on it. Okay. These two curved surfaces are called the occipital condyles. Okay. And in the middle, so foramen magnum, occipital condyles. Okay. And on the back of the occipital bone are these two ridges, okay, where the muscles of the neck. So if you move your neck up and down, you realize that your muscles that move your neck up and down are in the back of the neck, not the front of the neck. Okay, they're all in the back, and so they attach to these two things right here: the inferior noctural line and the superior noctural line. Okay, so what happens is this. Okay, when you have a lot of muscles, when you are more muscular, these lines and ridges, they are bigger. If you're less muscular, they are smaller. Okay, that's the reason why most of the models that you will see and the pictures that you will see on here are of men. The men are generally bigger, and therefore their the lines and stuff are more prominent and more visible. Okay. Okay. The temporal bone. Okay. So let's look at the temporal bone. This right here is the temporal bone. Okay. So here's the temporal bone. Okay. So this is the temporal bone. The temporal bone, there's a lot of little features I want you to know on the temporal bone, starting with this one. Okay. This one right here. That's called the zygomatic process, and it forms part of your cheekbone. Okay. Okay. Back here, okay, it's called your mastoid process, and you can feel it if you reach behind the ear and you push up. You'll feel a big bump there. That is the mastoid process. Okay. A lot of the muscles of your jaw and neck, actually, like when you move up and down, you move it up and down on that point. Okay, that's the mastoid process. Okay, here, okay, this sharp pointy thing right there is the styloid process. Okay, and so process, sharp pointy thing that sticks out of the bone. Okay, and last but not least, the external acoustic meatus. That is your external acoustic meatus. External, outside, acoustic for sound, meatus, wandering channel. Okay, so it's not a straight shot through. Okay, it's a wandering channel, external acoustic meatus. Okay. All right. The sphenoid spans the width of the cranial floor. So the sphenoid is one of these bones that you can't actually see very much of unless you open up the skull. Okay. It consists of the body and 3 pairs of processes with 4 openings. So let's take a look. Okay. So here is your sphenoid. Okay. So now what I'm looking at is I've cracked open your skull, I've ripped out your brain, and now I'm looking in. Okay, so now this is the sphenoid. Okay, the sphenoid looks like a bat. Okay, and with 2 sets of wings, one bigger set on the bottom, and one lesser set on top. So greater wing for the bigger set, lesser wing for the smaller set. Okay. In here, okay, is this little spot, okay, called the sella turcica. It is literally a spot that looks like you can sit in it. It looks like a little seat, okay? Sella turcica. Sella means saddle, like the thing you ride with horses. Turcica means Turkish, okay? Back in the Roman days, they were fighting the Turks, and the Turks had this special type of saddle where they had back support. So you can see the back support right here. That actually gave them more leverage, so they can pull a bow harder and shoot Romans easier. So like that was actually a critical component of their fighting force, their cavalry. Okay, so sella turcica. Okay. Also important, the one hole that you need to know from all this is the optic canal. Your sense of vision, your nerves, cranial nerves, go through the optic canal. Okay. 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 The ethmoid. Okay. The ethmoid lies between the nasal and sphenoid bones. Okay. Again, it really the ethmoid is the hardest bone to actually completely visualize in the skull because it's so surrounded by other bones. It's very hard to see. Okay, the top part that you can see, I'll explain that to you in a second. Okay, there's the ethmoid. Okay, the ethmoid you can see is mostly buried in. The part that you can see is this little tip here called the crissa galli. Okay, that's a sharp pointy thing that sticks up right there, sticks up right there. one of the membranes around the brain attaches to that one point right there, which is why that's important. The other thing that's important is this plate right here. This plate is called a cribriform plate. And inside the cribriform plate are the cribriform foramina. Foramen, big hole. Foramina, little holes. Okay? So the cribriform foramina, bunch of little holes. Through those little holes is your sense of smell. See, your nose runs right up through those holes. Your sense of smell runs through those little holes. Damage that surface, no more smell. Okay? All right. Okay. So hopefully, I give you guys a sense of the skull. Now we'll switch to a different app and show you some of these pictures. Okay? And then we'll continue with part 2 where we're talking about the rest of the face and the rest of the actual skeleton. Okay, so this is an app called PAL. It's through Mastering AP. I thought this part was useful, but I didn't want you guys to pay like a couple $100 for just using this. So this is, I can show you some of these images. Okay. So that's the parietal bone. Okay. So what we're looking at now is we're looking at the top of the skull down, like you're above the skull. Okay. So this is the parietal bone. Frontal bone. This is the coronal suture. Okay. So this little suture. So let's see if I can find a better angle for some of the other stuff. Okay, now I have opened up the skull. Okay, and so I see into the skull. So this is the greater wing. This is the lesser wing. Embedded right here is the cell. Okay. The optic canal is right there. They'll show it on a different slide. For right now, ethmoid bone, cribriform plate of the ethmoid. Okay. Chrysogally of the ethmoid. Okay. What else? There's a okay. Okay. Obviously, this is a big hole, the foramen back. Okay. You see all this already? So let me take you back to the first pictures. Okay, good. Okay. So that's the hole through which the hearing works. Okay. This that sharp pointy thing is the sphenoid. This big ball sphenoid. Okay, and this is the zygomatic. Okay. Uh, okay. There are also small sutures that you don't have to know. You just have to know the 4 big ones. Okay. All right. I will end this right here, and we'll pick up with the facial bones and possibly the rest of the presentation. I'm not sure how many parts I want to make this. All right.